Your bedroom remembers who you were at your lowest. Every wall, every corner, every object you've touched during your worst moments holds an energetic imprint you've been breathing in without realizing it. And by the end of this, you'll understand exactly why rearranging your outer world is one of the fastest ways to rearrange your inner one. Think about the last time you walked into someone else's home and felt something shift inside you before a single word was spoken. A heaviness, a lightness, a strange tension you couldn't explain. You hadn't read the room, you'd felt it. That feeling wasn't imagination, it was information. Everything in the physical world vibrates. The chair you're sitting in right now appears solid, but at the atomic level, it's almost entirely empty space held together by frequencies of energy in constant motion. The Hermetic tradition called this the principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Modern physics arrived at the same conclusion through a different door. Your furniture, your clothing, your walls, all of it pulses with energy, and that energy interacts with yours every second you spend in its presence. Here's where it gets personal. When you sit in the same spot every night ruminating about your failures, that spot absorbs the frequency of those thoughts. When you lie in bed cycling through anxiety about tomorrow, your sheets, your pillow, your mattress become saturated with that signal. Neville Goddard taught that your state of consciousness is the cause of everything you experience. Your environment is downstream of your state, but it also feeds back into it. The objects around you become anchors for the states you've practiced most while near them. This is why you can feel motivated and clear after a weekend away, then lose that clarity within hours of walking back through your front door. The shift happened because your old environment dragged you back into your old frequency. Your body recognized the space, and your subconscious mind loaded the corresponding state like a default program. You sat in the same chair, looked at the same walls, and your consciousness settled into the groove it had carved there over months or years. So why does physical space carry this residue? Because consciousness is the substance of all things. Every object in your environment was perceived into existence through awareness. Your awareness and awareness leaves a signature. Florence Scovel Shinn understood this when she taught about clearing your home of objects tied to negative memories. She recognized that a gift from someone who hurt you doesn't become neutral just because you've forgiven them intellectually. The object still vibrates at the frequency of the experience it's linked to. Every time your eyes land on it, your subconscious fires the associated state, even if your conscious mind has moved on. Consider how differently you feel in a freshly cleaned room versus a cluttered one. The clutter carries the vibration of every postponed decision, every "I'll deal with it later," every moment of overwhelm that created it. Each pile is a physical manifestation of stagnant energy. Cleaning that space moves the energy, literally. You're handling objects, making decisions, creating order from chaos, and your inner state shifts in real time, because the outer reflects the inner, and the inner responds to the outer. The relationship flows both directions. This bidirectional flow is the mechanism most people miss. They understand that their thoughts create their reality, but they forget that their reality is also reinforcing their thoughts every single moment. Goddard spoke about living in the end, assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That practice becomes exponentially harder when every object in your line of sight contradicts the assumption. You're trying to feel wealthy while surrounded by evidence of scarcity. You're trying to feel loved while sitting in a room decorated by a version of you who believed they'd always be alone. The walls are arguing with your imagination, and the walls have been arguing longer. This is why changing your physical environment can create breakthroughs that years of mental effort alone couldn't produce. You're removing the contradictory evidence. You're silencing the vibrational argument. When you rearrange furniture, paint a wall, clear out old belongings, you're interrupting the feedback loop between your space and your subconscious. The old anchors dissolve. Your mind suddenly, without its familiar triggers, becomes more available to new states. You've experienced this in small ways already. A new haircut changes how you carry yourself for days. New clothes shift your posture, your confidence, your willingness to make eye contact with strangers. These are minor environmental changes, producing measurable state shifts. Scale that principle up to the space where you spend most of your waking hours, and the effect compounds dramatically. But there's a subtlety here that separates real transformation from temporary redecoration. Changing your environment without changing your dominant state of consciousness will eventually reproduce the same vibrational residue in the new space. You'll bring your old frequency into the fresh room, and within weeks, the new arrangement will feel just as heavy as the old one. The space didn't fail you. You re-imprinted it. The practice that actually works involves both directions simultaneously. You shift your inner state through assumption, mental diet, and sustained feeling, while also reshaping your outer environment to support that new state. Each reinforces the other. Your cleaned, reorganized space stops triggering old patterns. Your elevated inner state imprints the new arrangement with a higher frequency. The feedback loop now works in your favor. Start with what Shinn would have called a clearance. Walk through your living space and notice which objects produce a contraction in your body, a tightness, a subtle heaviness. That response is your consciousness recognizing vibrational residue that contradicts where you're going. The coffee mug from a job that drained you, the books you bought during a period of desperation, the furniture arrangement you created when you were trying to hide from life. These things whisper to your subconscious all day long, and the message they carry is, you are still that person. Remove them, donate them, rearrange what remains, and as you do it consciously. Every object you release, feel the state it carried leaving with it. Every surface you clean, feel it becoming a blank canvas for the version of you that's emerging. This is active spiritual work disguised as housekeeping. Pay attention to what you bring in to replace what you've cleared. Each new object is a vote for your new state. Choose things that vibrate at the frequency of who you're becoming. A plant that requires tending because the person you're stepping into nurtures living things. A journal placed on your nightstand because the new version of you captures insights before sleep. Art that moves something in your chest when you look at it. These objects become new anchors, new vibrational touch points that remind your subconscious of the assumption you're sustaining. Your bed deserves special attention. You spend a third of your life there. You enter the state akin to sleep there. That critical threshold Goddard identified as the most potent moment for impressing the subconscious. If your bedding, your pillows, your bedroom arrangement all carry the frequency of insomnia and worry, you're swimming upstream every night. Fresh sheets on the day you commit to a new assumption might sound trivial. The subconscious doesn't think so. It registers the novelty. It notices that something has changed, and in that gap of noticing, the new state slides in more easily. Some skeptics within the spiritual community argue that true mastery means being able to hold your state regardless of environment. They're partially right. Goddard himself manifested from a tiny apartment in New York. The goal is inner dominion that no outer circumstance can shake. And yet, even Goddard changed his environment as his consciousness expanded. He moved, he traveled, he chose lecture halls with specific energy. Mastery over your state and intelligent use of environmental support aren't opposing strategies. One accelerates the other. The person who insists they should be able to manifest in any environment is often using that belief as an excuse to avoid the simple physical work of clearing their space. Meanwhile, the stagnant energy in their room is adding resistance to every session of inner work they attempt. Spiritual maturity means using every tool available, inner and outer, without depending on either exclusively. Your environment is a mirror and a mold simultaneously. It reflects the consciousness that created it, and it shapes the consciousness that inhabits it. When you grasp this fully, cleaning your apartment stops being a chore. Rearranging your desk stops being procrastination. These actions become deliberate acts of creation. You sculpting the outer world to match the inner world you've chosen. Tonight, before you sleep, stand in the doorway of your room and feel the space. Actually feel it. Notice what it says to you. Notice which version of you it's still speaking to. Then change one thing, move one object, clear one surface, light a candle where there wasn't one before. And as you lie down in that slightly altered room, assume the state of the person you've decided to become. Let the small change in your environment give your subconscious permission to believe that something really has shifted. Because it has. The room knows it. And now, so do you.